Welcome back to the Humble Rising podcast. I am your host, Arivee. And in this episode of the podcast, I got to sit down with the incredible Yeve Chitiga, a lawyer and executive coach to women lawyers. So she is a woman after my own heart. Over the last 18 years, through her internal audit and her legal experience, Yeve has honed a unique ability to discover what is hidden beneath the surface and hear the unspoken. She began her professional career in banking, working for international institutions in the US and in the UK. And as an attorney, Yeve became counsel at the law firm of WilmerHale before pivoting to a late-stage financial technology startup. She is also a workshop facilitator, a moderator, and an experienced dynamic public speaker with a gift for captivating audiences. Through her blend of wit and warmth, she delivers speeches that resonate with diverse audiences. And her gift for storytelling extends into literature as a published children's book author. She has also been featured in Forbes as a Black woman redefining entrepreneurship. And in this conversation with Yeve, let me tell you, she shares her personal journey from the legal profession to becoming a coach, emphasizing the unique challenges faced by women and women of color in the legal field. We talk about the societal and professional conditioning that influences so much and so many of our career choices and self-worth that we feel as women that we have, and the importance of unlearning a lot of limiting beliefs. Our conversation delves into strategies for navigating career transitions or moments where you're feeling like something is off, something is shifting. What do I do with that? We talk about how to find fulfillment and this concept of self-worth and worthiness as an innate quality, innately within you, rather than one tied to your achievements. And we talk about motherhood, of course, because we're both moms, in the context of being a high achiever, being really, really ambitious as a lawyer. We talk about the attachment that we feel to certain parts of our identity and how hard it is to let go a little bit of some of that, and what enoughness actually means for high achieving lawyers, where nothing feels like it's ever good enough. Now, this episode is an exploration, I would say, of personal growth, professional growth, and the power of your own self-agency in shaping your career and your life. Your environment really does matter. It really impacts you, and you have an incredible amount of power in the sphere of your control, which is your self-agency. And Yeve and I talk a lot about that. This conversation is very much one that Yeve and I would have without the microphone on, because we're friends outside of this conversation. So I'm so thrilled that you get to hear what it would be like to be a fly on the wall with us, just talking about the different challenges that our clients experience, what we help other people through, but also what we've been through as well. So get your notebook out. You might want to take some notes, because we also talk about where do you start when you're kind of feeling like something is off or something has to change or something is changing in me, and what do I do with that? We're talking all about that. Here's my conversation with Yeve. I am so happy that we got to finally meet and that we get to finally have this conversation.
Thank you so much for having me, Arivee. I am super excited. It's been a long time coming, but this is the right time for us to do this.
Yes, long time coming, but absolutely the right time. So, Yeve, tell us more about you, your story, and what you do now and why you do it.
I love that question. Why do I do it? I'll start there.
Yeah.
I'm an executive coach for women lawyers, and I do that because as a woman lawyer, I know the challenges, I know the struggles, I know what it feels like to be in a system, in a place that really wasn't designed for you, to feel like a fish out of water, to feel like you're just not enough. You're not doing enough, to feel confused sometimes and stuck and unfulfilled, all of the things in between. And so I do this work to serve as an encourager, as a guide, as a person to help women recognize their own power, to curate and create the life and career that they want. And I came to this work through my own journey of all the things that I've just described. Mm-hmm. And when I look back now, as they say, life is lived forward but understood backwards, right? When I look back, I recognize that at various points in my life, I have always wanted to do the work that I'm doing now. I just couldn't articulate it. And I got closer and closer to articulating it. The older I got, the more I was exposed to various things. But I've always wanted to do work that was deeply impactful and meaningful for humans, one-to-one. And I get to do that now. And ultimately, I am a creative person at heart. I've always been that way. That's how I showed up in this world. And along the way, those creative outlets were on the back burner as I pursued the more traditional things that brought traditional measures of success. So I pursued banking, I pursued law. All of those things were great and were useful tools for me. And I'm so glad that I went on that path. However, knowing what I know now, I might have structured things a little differently. But I'm so grateful to have had all the experiences that I've had because they brought me here. So I'll stop there because I'm sure we're going to get into it even more.
Yeah. And I'd love to talk more about even your own journey as a lawyer, and maybe even before, you got into the law, of what the conditioning is for women. Mm-hmm. Then even before we get into like our quote unquote professional careers, the condition that I've seen it be amplified or doubled down on in corporate environments and legal environment, where there's like childhood conditioning, where it's messages that you feel like you're receiving, whether they're spoken or unspoken, and you make meaning of things and you interpret them that way and you internalize them, right? But then there's also professional conditioning. But for women, I feel like they're very much aligned, meaning they're very and we're being conditioned to be, and what we're conditioned to think. You mentioned, this enoughness. And I see that so much. So I'd love to talk, if you could talk more about that, even in your own journey and what you've seen with your coaching clients.
That's powerful and it's deep. Oof. And as a girl mom, I think about this often.
I know. I'm like, I hope I'm not contributing to this conditioning.
I know. I think, if we deconstruct it, we recognize there's a societal element, right? And I think society teaches us that women have this lane that they play in. And you can either play in the corporate lane, and if you do that, understand there's a place for you, and that place is for you not to be too much, right? Don't speak too much. Don't complain. Don't, all of these rules. And you have to look a certain way, and you have to talk a certain way and behave a certain way. So if you're going to go that route, know that there's a set of things that are expected of you. And then there's the other lane, which is to rear kids and to do all of those things that are traditional, start a family and all of that. When you decide to mix the two, it gets very, very murky, right? Because now you're dabbling in these two worlds. And even though we have record numbers, I think, the stats show that like women are not earning men in the household, right? Women are the primary breadwinners in a lot of cases. Women are more educated. Like there's all of these statistics that show these advancements for women on a larger scale, right? Still, you are expected to work as if you don't have kids, and you're expected to take care of your children and be a mom as if you don't work, right? And that's not a phrase that I came up with. And so that is a weird dichotomy. How do you do that? How do you do that? And in my own experience, I have seen that firsthand. I have been in environments in which I was essentially penalized for taking care of my family when I needed to do so, even though I had overt support to do so. It was like, oh, of course, take the time you need to do that, because we recognize this is a really big thing. And then it came back to bite me. It was, well, you haven't been focusing enough on work. And when I asked for the examples, or, can you show me what that has meant? Has that meant my work has suffered? Like, why is this even something that's coming up? There was pushback there. It was like, well, now you're asking too many questions.
Yeah.
So I think that's
now
now you're advocating too much, right? Yep. You are an advocate. That's what you do. That's what we pay you to do. But now you're doing it a little too much for yourself. So I think societally, that's kind of what's going on. And I think, then if you break it down to like traditional, things that you see, or cultural things that you see, I was very fortunate growing up that I come from a line of very strong women who forge these amazing paths in various areas for themselves and have a name for themselves. And that's what I grew up seeing. So I didn't feel this pressure that, oh, I have to like get married at a certain age and start having kids. I actually didn't feel that at all. It might have actually been the opposite a little bit, right? And so what I see, tying it now to what I see with my clients, I think what I see the most, and I think this speaks more to, is both how women are conditioned, but I think generally as lawyers, actually being more specific, what I see the most and the biggest barrier or mindset shift that we're trying to make is this idea that you can only be one thing. You're a lawyer. That's the thing. And how dare you try to pivot and not do that? Even when we're talking about one type of law, moving from one type of practice, one type of maybe industry or whatever way of practicing law to another, there's a huge, huge block that people experience there. And the idea is, well, you have attained this really prestigious thing to be a lawyer, and you've got to continue to do that because anything outside of that is not successful. And so you've got to force your way through that and do it, even when it doesn't feel right anymore. And I don't mean leaving the profession, because I'm even talking about people who are literally thinking about just transitioning to a different role, right? From a firm to somewhere else. There's this really big block there. So that's kind of how I see it in terms of the conditioning and the struggle. And I think if we boil it down, we're really talking about women having agency over their lives and careers.
Sometimes there is this block in realizing how much agency you actually have, because there's an environment at play, there are systemic issues at play, and in parallel, you have self-agency. That's tough for a lot of people because they're like, wait, what do you mean I haven't done? I'm like, no judgment. I'm letting you see all the power you actually do have and how you can exercise it when this has actually nothing to do with this one, because you have some kind of sphere of control. But the other thing that I think that's powerful, just because when, like you were saying, how some of your clients, like the mindset shift of, I have so over-identified with one piece of me. And if I'm not doing that, and there's an attachment to that, there's an achievement attachment, there's an attachment there that's hard to let go of. Because even when you switch practice groups, or for like a lot of my clients who they either want to make partner or they want to go in-house, even that switch for them, and then forget it. If you're talking about something outside the law, that's a massive shift, right? Like that's a huge one to work on. But even to go in-house, it's no, but I've been at a law firm and this means something, like the meaning that we've attached to it and that we've anchored in terms of our identity. It's so to face that feels like sometimes, and I'm sure you've seen this, like an identity crisis, an unraveling. And you have to let that unravel to then come back together. There's that piece of people that are also, and even thinking about your evolution, right? Sometimes like the older versions of us were true for us at the time. You mentioned that. You're like, no, I'm glad I was a lawyer. I'm glad I did banking. Like I'm grateful for those experiences. They have allowed me to do what I do today. I think sometimes, we don't allow those older versions to be older and that we've grown out of them. Right. So this idea that we're attached to a previous version of ourselves and then we're trying to enter into a new version, but we kind of don't want to, but we kind of do, but we kind of don't want to. And I know that's like the kind of transition you work on with clients is how do I move forward through this kind of messiness? Because it's messy. Yeah, but it's messy.
Oh,
I don't think that people wake up one day and it's like, oh, I'm going to do something else. No, we've been through the mess.
The mess. Talk about it. Oh, yes, it's messy. It's very messy. And I love what you said, which is you have to allow.
Yes.
Because you can face a lot of resistance internally, also externally, right?
Yes. People's
own views of what they might do, right, can limit you.
A projection.
Especially, it's projection, right? Especially when you are navigating things that seem to be, I'm going to use taboo for lack of a better word, but incongruent, perhaps, right? Well, that's not what we've been told is what you do. Right? And so there can be resistance there. And listen, we're not wired for change, right? We're not wired for change, let alone drastic changes. And it can feel drastic even if you're just making the switch from private to in-house, private practice to in-house, right? Let alone leaving altogether. And I want to talk too about not only the past versions of ourselves, but recognizing that the future versions of ourselves will take care of themselves too, right?
Yes.
In the future, you may choose something different from what you are choosing today. And that is okay. And how beautiful is it that you get to do that?
Yes. What a privilege.
What a privilege, right? This limitation we put on ourselves and how things need to flow. It's attachment, right? And we talk a lot about attachment in coaching. Being so attached to something that you grip it so tight that when you do this, it's like, oh, I bruised myself.
Yes.
It's because I've been gripping so tight. And having giving yourself more freedom, operating in the present, recognizing that in this moment I get to choose and I'm going to choose X. And I'm doing so based on the information around me, based on the things that are speaking to me in this moment. 5-10 years from now, I may make a different choice, and that is okay.
And standing in the truth of the moment for yourself, right? Like owning what is true for you in that moment. And Yeve, I'm curious, how do you help guide your clients to take like the first step and the second step? Like they come to you, they're like, I don't know what to do. Where do they start? And for anyone listening, like if they're feeling, I'm not feeling fulfilled. I feel like, is this it? I feel like this isn't quite right for me anymore, but I don't know what to do about it. I don't know who to be. What's kind of, where do they start?
They start exactly there, acknowledging that's where they are.
I love talking to other coaches. I love talking to other coaches because like the first step is acknowledgement and awareness. Always.
That's it.
And it's a big one, but it's a massive one.
It's huge.
Like, I'm not trying to downplay it. It's huge. Yeah.
Absolutely. But that's it, right? Having that honest conversation with yourself to say, oh, okay, something feels off. I'm uncomfortable. I'm discontent. I'm unfulfilled. I'm stuck. Call it what you will. We're talking about the same thing.
Yes.
And I think that's a powerful moment to have with yourself because It's so easy to continue to do what you've always done. But to listen to that thing that is not tangible, but it's there, oh, that takes some work. So acknowledgement is a huge one. And then I think in our time together, the first thing that we do quite often is talk about how we got here. Talk about how we got here so we understand what we're dealing with. And often, and you know this probably too, Arivee, with your clients, right? Often the thing that presents in that first meeting is not the thing.
Yes, that's right. That's right. That's right.
It's not the thing. There's layers and really deep things underneath there. And so talking and trying to understand how we got here, then we can extract, what are we really talking about here? Oh, we're really talking about self-worth, self-confidence, lack of clarity about who I want to be, the future that I want. That's what we're really talking about. Okay.
Yeah, but talk about that a little. Talk about the self-worth piece a little bit more. It's something I see time and time again. I personally have had my own journey with that, right? Feeling like what I do is enough, feeling like who I am is enough as I am, that I'm doing, that I am enough, it's good enough. And I see it so much with clients, especially lawyers. And can we just unpack that one a little bit more?
Yeah, let's please. I'd love to hear more on your end too. What I've found is hyperachievers, high achievers, let me call them that, high achievers are often people who have grown up being praised for doing. They're doers, right? You do well, you get praise, you do well, you get praise, you do well, you get praise. And that is how you measure your self-worth.
Yes.
What starts to happen when you are facing some kind of transition or pivot, oftentimes, is this discomfort of something isn't quite right. Something isn't quite right. And because something isn't quite right, you feel like what you're doing is not enough. So it's not enough. Now you're questioning, well, I do and I get praised. I do. And that's how I build up the self-worth. So if what I'm doing is not enough, that's now chipping away at you are not enough. Something is up with you. So I think that's an element of it. But going back to what we said about systemic issues and structures, oftentimes as lawyers, as women, as a Black woman, in my own experience, I know that even when I was doing the very best that I could and overdoing and all of these things I was told were how to be successful in the role. Even when I was doing that, it still wasn't enough. But a colleague who perhaps does not look like me, often did not look like me, could do much less and get so much acknowledgement and praise and advancement and all of that. So it's both and.
Yes.
It's that internal system of validation that was developed growing up over the years that makes us focus on that. The reason I use the word hyperachiever is because you're driven by achievement and you're like going for the next thing, right? And then, so there's the internal thing. And then there's also the systemic structural things that can exist as well. So it's a really tricky one. And I just find it to be so widespread.
Yes.
It's such a difficult one. And I want to go, because I mostly coach online. I want to go through the screen and just like say, please, I wish you could see who you are, and understand and believe who you are. I just want to do that. But it's a journey and we have to go through that journey for ourselves and get to that place where we understand that our worth, we have innate worth.
Yes. And yes, Yeve, so in my book, Your Time to Rise, I talk a lot about this, how self-worth is an inside job. And I'm looking up because I have these two books that I always tell people were very helpful to me when I really started to pack this for myself, very low point in my life. But when I started to unpack it, I started to see things and I started to feel like I'm not crazy. Oh, wait, this idea of an innate sense of worth, I had never even heard of it until I read these books. So one of them is Return to Love by Marianne Williamson. And it is faith-based. So for anyone listening, it's faith-based. I'm a woman of faith, so it worked for me. But like just FYI for people who, you know, if you're not faith-based, then that's okay. Just read the other one. Gifts of Imperfection by Brene Brown. Gifts of Imperfection is a very short and powerful book. I think regardless of whether you're a Brene Brown fan or not, I think her work is incredible. Her research is great and it's so robust and it teaches us a lot of things that I love her research because it gave us language for things that we didn't have language for before. And I think language is powerful. Naming things is powerful for yourself. So those are 2 books that I felt were so helpful to me in my own journey. And I recommend them to clients too. I say, if you want to read these 2 books, I think it'll just help you, make you understand that the imperfection it's not even imperfection. It's human. It's human to not be perfect, right? There's no such thing as perfection. And the problem is that we receive so many messages from society, from family, from all these, we get all these inputs on who we should be and how we should act. And we start comparing ourselves to idealized image of things. And then that's never going to match up, right? And so the comparison game becomes really powerful and becomes really influential for us. But then also there's this really impactful piece about that you were talking about, that when you're growing up, you do what you're told to do. And when you do that, you get praised. So then you go to school, you know, you are told what to do. You are taught what to do. And when you do what you're told and when you're compliant and when you are compliant and cooperative and you do what you're supposed to do, you get good grades. Because the passionate student who is obsessed with art, but doesn't love math and science, is good at it, but like doesn't love it, and he wants to do more art, teachers are like, no, you need to put the same amount of time into art as you do to math and science. So the student is like, okay, I will suppress my art a little bit because I got to focus on these other subject areas to get good grades, to get to a good college, to do the things that people say I have to do. And I'm not saying that, obviously, Yeve, I'm not saying that going to college and law school is a bad thing. Obviously, it's a great thing and you have to get good grades.
Yeah.
However, I'm talking about the conditioning that's happening to you as you're doing that. For most of your life, even at home, if you do what you're told, you're good. Like your parents are going to yell at you. You'll get praised for being a quote unquote good girl, right? And you are conditioned to do what you're told, to check the boxes, to get the praise. And what happens, I think, is when we hit post-college, post-law school, you start like, who's going to tell me what to do to get praise? Who's going to tell me what boxes do I have to check? Like, you're looking for the same framework to follow because that made you successful, quote unquote, in the past. So you're looking for like, what do I have to do? I'll follow the rules. Tell me what I need to do. And I think what happens when we talk about this transition from older versions of you to like maybe a newer version or future version of you and what that might require of you, that's can be terrifying because it's like, wait, where's the rule book? Where's the blueprint? I need someone to tell me. And you know this in your coaching work. It's like, you got to create your own. That's so scary.
I know. Oh, I love everything you said. Oof. Yeah. And I love that you talk about this a lot. Not only in your book, but just generally, right? Because you had your own journey, right? And I'm sure we'll get to it, but how also being a mom, I know that was a big for you, right? That was a pivotal moment for you as well, right? That changes things too. But yeah, it's your own journey that you go through. But what's interesting, and I think comforting actually, is we all experience this. Yes, we all experience this at some point. We do. So you're not alone. And I tell people that as a joke, like the downside of coaching, going through coaching and therapy and things of that nature is once you do it, you won't be able to go back because now you see these things and you're like, oh, that's who I am. That's what I'm dealing with. Oh, okay. And you're going to want to continue the growth and the evolution because you recognize there's so much to unlearn. So there's so much to learn at the same time. So yeah, it's a journey. It's a journey.
The unlearning, I'm convinced is the hardest part because it requires you used the word allowing, like it requires the allowing to be and the shedding of the things that aren't helpful and that are not serving you anymore, may have served you before. Like I always give like massive shout outs to every lawyer, anyone who's doing these kinds of professions. Look, what you've done has made you successful, quote unquote successful. Now you got to decide what success means to you. Like now you have a responsibility now, right? Like now you've acknowledged this isn't working for me or something isn't working for me. So what could work for you? And like, how do you start making the small shifts to get yourself used to being in kind of this messy discomfort, right? Because but we're not going from 0 to 100, right? Like we don't do that because we'll just reject. That's too overwhelming. But I'm curious from your experience in this journey that you take clients on and that clients are on and that you support them on. Do you find that there are some points where like there's momentum and then they get stuck a little bit, and there's momentum and then they get stuck a little bit? Like, what are those moments about? Because I have found that too when I'm coaching too. It's like there's momentum and then they're like, oh, and then I reverted and then, you have to kind of, sometimes we have to remind them who they are.
Yeah.
Them of their, right. But I'm wondering, what have you seen? Where did all this stuck?
This is interesting. And I actually want to use myself as a gospel myself as an example, because I like to remind people that I have not arrived, right? I have not arrived. Just because I am coaching and I'm able to impart and guide, etc., I am still on my own journey. And I have found for myself that I am still unlearning and shedding. I love that word shedding, and I'll explain why, but shedding old, bad work habits. I'm still shedding those.
Yeah.
I thought like by now I would be done with that, right? But But it's like these things that I did for so long when I was in corporate working, either in banking or, as a lawyer, that I'm still kind of finding myself. It's like almost second nature to me. And so I'm still shedding those. And I have learned for me, one of the biggest lessons and the biggest journeys that I am on is to understand what it means to rest. I am learning how to rest.
What does that look like?
That for me comes, what is it? Yeah, like, yeah. I was going to say that for me comes from not only the environment of being in corporate America, but just like how I grew up. I grew up with a mom who is such a high achiever, and it's almost like she doesn't sit down.
A lot of us grew up in the outside where people are always moving, always doing something. If you're not moving, what are you doing? What are
you doing? Even now, like I have to remind her, like it's okay. You didn't do whatever you said you would do or what you thought you should do for like 3 days. That's okay. You're allowed to rest. So for me, what it has started to look like is I give myself lots of grace. And I really, really practice this, and I encourage others. Give yourself grace is one of my quotable phrases because I say that a lot. And what I mean by that is really allowing yourself to be as opposed to do all the time. Just allow yourself to be. And so you're not feeling well in your body. You're not feeling well in your spirit, not feeling well mentally. Like acknowledge that and honor that. Rest. Do something other than, I've got to keep busy or whatever. Rest. Just park it. It's also meant for me, starting this year, I implemented no meeting Fridays just so I have a day.
I love that. I do CEO Mondays and then I do no meeting Fridays because you need space. And yeah, but like I've I've been in corporate environments and I've encouraged people to do like a half a day where you have no meetings on Friday. So you have meetings until noon, and then noon till 4 or 5, you are like maybe catching up on things. You don't have to do stuff on the weekend, but because, corporate culture is very meeting heavy. And so we want to give ourselves some breathing room before the weekend, some breathing room in the week.
I'm just saying. So that has been lovely. And even in that, I've had to remind myself of that boundary and honor it for myself, because sometimes I'm like, oh, let me just slip in, and I have to remind myself, no. Is it pressing? Is it urgent that it must be done on Friday? No, it can wait the following week or another day. So that's been a change that I've implemented. And then the other one, this one shocked even myself, as has been last year. I did this for the first time, and it's something that I'm going to continue. But I took the entire month of August off. It's my birthday month. And so in part, in celebrating myself, I took it off, meaning I didn't add anything new to my calendar. And I just was focused on how can I be present? How can I rest?
What did that look like, though? What did that month look like? What do you mean by present and rest? That's what Wes was saying. What do you mean by be present? What do you mean by being rest?
Yeah. I mean, it goes back to what I was saying, like honoring what I was feeling. If I was feeling tired, or if I didn't feel like doing something, I didn't do it. I didn't force myself to it. I didn't guilt myself into it. I didn't judge myself into it. I did the things that brought me joy. That looked like, spending time with my daughter, going to play outside, and she was doing the climbing of trees, but I would be there watching or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Doing more of that, reading, doing nothing, quite literally just doing nothing, putting my phone down, not having the TV on, right? No stimulation, just doing nothing. Sometimes in net watching a show. It meant so many different things.
Yes.
And I just honored that. And I was like, okay. Because I think that's the other thing too, right? We are so accustomed to this control that even in rest, I want to control that. Okay, and what is it exactly that I'm going to do on this day of rest? And I need to schedule it, and that works maybe like if you want to schedule a massage or a facial, whatever, you need to schedule it. Yes. But sometimes you need to just like have freedom and just like let it be. Right? What's happening in the moment? Can you pay attention to what's happening in the moment? And I challenge myself when I'm driving, because it's so easy for me to be like, okay, well, now I've got to listen to this. I've got to listen to the audiobook, make sure I'm still, learning, or music. And I'm like, I challenge myself. I'm like, it's a 20-minute drive. I'm just going to be here and just be by myself and observe traffic and what's happening around me, as opposed to needing to have an extra. It's very hard. But I'm challenging myself to do that and be more like, what's happening now? So I'm using myself as that example. And I think it looks very similarly for others. And I think in terms of your question about the points of like resistance and all of that, I find that and you said it very well before, but when you bite off more than you can chew, it's more likely that you will revert to the things that you did before, because this big thing that you've been off is too overwhelming. So those are the moments where I see people start to kind of slack off, right? And so we talk a lot about making it manageable. And, there's so many books around tiny steps and all of that, right? Atomic habits, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. Just small steps. It doesn't need to be this big thing. You didn't arrive here in a flash. So it's going to take some time to deconstruct whatever it is that's happening.
Yes. I'd love to go.
And I love.
Go ahead. No, you go.
No,
we haven't.
You go. Arivee, you use the word shedding, and I want to talk about that a little bit, because it goes to this idea that we spent some time talking about a little bit, that old versions of you served you, right? They were there for a reason. They gave you had data at that time, and you used that data to make whatever informed decision or choice or path, etc. And shedding, if you think about what that means, it means something that was a part of you or on you that is now coming off. And honoring that and recognizing that, this part that I developed, or this identity or whatever, was part of me and I needed it. But now I don't. And now I get to set it aside. Less judgment of, oh my goodness, how could I have this thing? But really more, oh, this was a part of me. Okay. That was for a time. And now that's not where we are now. So understanding that it was a part of you, and there's reasons for that. It's not always that there's like positive reasons or whatever, but there's reasons for that. There's a reason why that was a part of you at that time, and like explore that with curiosity versus judgment.
Yes. Explore curiosity and accepting that this is happening. Like this is happening. So instead of saying what, that's where you start. What is happening? You start there, right? And then it's like, okay, this is happening. And it's not happening to me. I mean, you've heard the saying, it's happening for me, but I always say it is happening in service of my higher self, whatever that means in the future, right? It is happening, and let me explore it. And this is what, in the book, the first chapter, I talk about this is, I talk about how when I became a mother, when I was a lawyer for a long time at a law firm, and I became a mom and had maternity leave, again, so privileged to get paid maternity leave, which many people don't get. But when I had that complete separation from work, I was so agitated. And I was like, why am I bothered so much that I'm not working? Because I was working a lot. And I'm like, shouldn't I be happy that I'm like working in a different way? I'm working on being a mom. Like there's a different kind of work. And I would say it's the most important we do is the work we do as parents, because we're raising the next generation of children or next generation of leaders, kids that'll become the next generation. And so I remember that, like the need to explore those questions and how scary it was. But I had to face myself of like, this is happening. You have changed, you're growing, and we got to figure out what this means. Like it was more just and then now I'm here, Yeve. So like that was 10 years ago. So I mean, again, time and unlearning and accepting and questioning. But you're right, from a place of, what does this mean for me? And what am I making this mean for me? And what is factual data versus like something I've made up and stories I tell myself? Sifting through some of that, especially with a coach, is so powerful. Like I know you've had a coach, we coach. The other thing I wanted to point out, two things that you said that I thought were really powerful is one, this need to let go of so much control all the time. Letting go of the control over every single thing and how you do everything and how everything is done. And I think that's one. And the second you mentioned a little while ago, but I want to double click on it, is giving ourselves grace. I don't have one client that isn't hard on themselves. All of them come to me that way. And by the way, I am also that way, right? Like I need my coach to be like, hey, like look at all the things you're doing right. And so you didn't pick up your kids on time because you forgot. Okay, that happens. And I think especially as a mother, I think we're really ourselves because to be honest, I think the stakes are higher for us as moms. The stakes are higher, and we know that. And we're like, we cannot mess this up. We can't mess this up. Right. I'm curious, like what your was with that, with motherhood and this journey we're on. I know. Another episode, okay?
That's another part 3 will be back. You know what I've come to accept is, just as our generation and we are in therapy from, we all talk about like, childhood trauma, there's various levels and stuff, right, of that. Things we are unlearning and reparenting ourselves, all of this language that we have developed. And I think our generation has done a lot of that, right? Just as we are doing that, our kids will need to in a different way for different reasons, right? And accepting that. I have really accepted that. I came to that because when I was writing my children's book, I was like, wait a minute. There's a lot of things that generationally, so, I'm originally from Zimbabwe. And there's a lot generationally that my generation didn't get from our parents for various reasons. They were the first people who came into post-colonial Zimbabwe, and raising kids, my generation, right? And so there were different things that they were thinking of. As a result, there's certain things that we missed out on in terms of like learning some of the other languages, etc. Anyway, all that to say, giving them grace and understanding and saying, oh, you know what? I empathize with that and I understand it. I am making a different decision today, and that's okay. And guess what? It's a cycle that will continue in the sense that your kids will also be making different decisions. And hopefully they empathize with the things that you are doing today, but they will also make different decisions. Their kids will evaluate and say, oh, interesting. I'm making a different decision, right? And then, of course, there's values and things that you want to, carry on and instill and all of that, right? But there is a separate kind of track that happens as well. So I'll come to accept that. That's one. And then two, I am actually in the process of giving myself grace as a mom. I'm trying to teach my daughter to give herself and me grace as well. And her dad, because she can be very exacting. She's 6. They going on.
That's what happens. They start getting real literal and they get real precise and they remember everything.
Right. Oh, and this has been happening for a while, right? And I'm like, listen, we may have said that we were going to get ice cream at 5 p.m. Things have changed now. There is new information and there was a new way we're doing things, and we're not getting ice cream at 5. We will instead get ice cream tomorrow or at 7 or whatever the thing is, right? And trying to teach her that there's room to be flexible,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Give me some grace. There's a reason why I'm doing that, and trust me, please.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of one way that I'm trying to do it. And then I think the last is, just as in our careers, we make decisions and we go on paths given the best information at the time or what we know, what we think is best. It's the same with being a mom for me. Is this humankind? Is she compassionate? Does she love to learn? Does she celebrate does she understand her own self-worth? And all of these things, those are the things and I'm a woman of faith too, right? And so that's another way that I measure my success. My husband and I say to each other often, like, you know what? Did you hear what she said? I think we're doing all right. We high five each other. Like, got this. And there's other times too, when we sit down with ourselves, I'm like, ooh, we need to adjust here and we need to do this because did you hear what she said or what she's not saying, whatever the case may be. Right. And so it's a constant recalibration on the grace scale, like giving ourselves lots of grace, recognizing, you know what, we're trying to figure this out. And also holding each other accountable and saying, hey, we were going to do X, but then I heard whatever the thing is, right? And just being in partnership together, I think both with my husband and then also with our daughter, involving her in this as well, because I understand that she's absorbing and learning, right? Things that she will take on. And so trying to involve her in the conversation where it's appropriate and where it makes sense to do. But I've let go, I think, of this idea that I have to be a perfect mom. It's just not going to happen. I'm never going to reach perfection. It is not attainable. Instead, how can I be chief memory maker, right? Positive memory maker. And how can I do all those things, right? And I mom hard, right? I say that all the time. Like I mom really hard. That is the most important job that I have. And as long as I think I'm honoring the things that I set out to do as a mom and listen to my child, what she needs from me as well, right? Then I'm happy. She might not be eating, vegetables every day because life. Yeah. Right? Because life, she might not get all the things or whatever it is, right? But listen, I'm raising a good human and that is my measure of success. And so I continue to hold myself to that even when I feel not so great in the moment about whatever is happening as a mom. So yeah.
Yes. I mean, you are role modeling so many amazing things for her. There's that saying of children don't do what they're taught. They do what's caught. And so I can see her watching you and being like, oh boy, like I could just see her just watching you and, they observe and they take in so much. And sometimes you don't even know what they are observing. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Like, and someone asked me like, oh, what do your kids think of, you writing a book? And I'm like, they know I'm an author and they think it's cool. Other than that, they don't really, I don't know. And I've asked them, but they're like, whatever, kids, they're in their own world. So, but I always find it so empowering when people like you are raising babies, because they already have this foundation of intentionality in their parenting and this power of seeing someone who did all the quote unquote things and then said, and you know what, I'm going to do it differently. And our children see that and they can see evolution. And I just, the example like that you're setting for your daughter, I think it's really incredible. So you should know that, like, you should know that she definitely sees it. And I obviously do. Wait, so yeah, let's make sure people know what you have going on for the rest of the year, and they can find you to work with you, to connect.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for that affirmation. That's so, so powerful. And I thank you for that. Thank you for speaking life to me. And I want to offer that back to you because you're doing exactly the same thing for your kids. And you're raising girls and a boy, you know? So all of that, it's like, wow, how powerful is it to have a mom who is this force, who is moving in the world on her own journey, continuing to evolve, right? And being intentional. What a beautiful thing. So the rest of the year, I'm so excited. I have some conferences I'm speaking at. I've got some workshops I'll be doing, more podcasting. And in terms of finding me, I hang out on LinkedIn. That's where I hang out. Yes. That's my digital home. So you can find me on LinkedIn pretty easily, and then on my website. And, you know, I'm excited for, speaking of evolution, I'm excited for what this second half of the year looks like and how it will evolve how I do things in my business and in my coaching practice and in speaking and all of that. I'm excited for what's in store, and I'm feeling very, very hopeful about all of those things. And yeah, I'm just so, so, so glad to be in community with you. Same, because seeing you doing things that you're doing also encourages me and reminds me that, wow, this is a really cool path to be on. And what are the possibilities? You've written a book now, you know? Yeah, it's amazing. And it's inspirational to me. I've written a children's book and I want to write more, but I absolutely want to take my story just as you have and help others and put it into a book. And so seeing you do that, I want you to know, is so inspirational. It's so encouraging. And I just can't wait to see all the things that you continue to do. And I hope there's some collaboration in our future. I'm going to say it. I've said it now.
Oh, no. I
said it now.
Are you in my brain? Because literally when you were talking, I was like, we have to do something together. And I was like, self-worth. We need to do something on self-worth. I was just thinking of that. We need to do something together, like a workshop or something for lawyers, for women lawyers. I'm like having all these ideas. Oh my gosh. You know, I have so many ideas as an entrepreneur. You get so many ideas and it's like really hard to not get distracted. Yes, it's really hard. It's really hard. But it's, you know, I always say that, and it's true. You don't put all of your real-time struggles out there, like on social media, right? Mm-hmm. I tend to do them when I've processed, when I've unpacked, like not when real and raw, right? And not everything needs to be shared. But I will say, even the book, it was so fulfilling and challenging. And I find even entrepreneurship to be so incredibly challenging and so ridiculously rewarding and fulfilling. Like they're both, and then there are all these other emotions, you know, like it's not, I always tell people when they say, when they're, you know, they're in a corporate job, they're at a firm, whatever, it's like, yeah, I just think I'm going to like to go just start my own business. And I go, okay, look, can we talk about that? Can we talk about what that would mean? Just because I want to be, then I get honest about what the journey has been and introduce them to other people doing it so they can share their stories with them. So they learn, oh, here's what I might want to expect. It may not be the same for me, but here are some data points. So I have data on what maybe it could look like for me, because it can't be that you just want to try it. It has to be anchored in a strong purpose, like a very convicted purpose. because this stuff gets hard and you have to have something to pull you forward. Really big girl. Come on. You can do it. Let's go. You know you're calling. Stop stalling. Stop procrastinating. Let's go. You know, the inner resistance, Stephen Pressfield, the war of art. Like that book, the resistance you feel when you're doing something, you're this close to doing something that's so important to you, and your resistance goes skyrocketed because it's so important that you're so close. That stuff, it's like the massive mindset transformation when you become an entrepreneur. And you coach lawyers as well. So like we know this. We're intimately familiar with the journey.
Intimately familiar. Whew.
Yes. Oh my God, Yeve, thank you so much for just being in conversation with me, and more to come, because we will, if not a podcast, like a workshop on the self-worth, and then we should do another episode on motherhood for sure. I think that'd be really,
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. Oh, I'm so enjoyed being with you here, and there's more to come for sure. This is only the beginning. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.